Lone'er Kavanagh took this fight on short notice at Elevation in Mexico against Brandon Moreno. And somehow he didn't look like the underdog that he was. He looked completely calm. And that's the kind of fight where everything, speeds up. You force exchanges. You make mistakes. But none of that showed up here. No. He didn't rush. Lone'er Kavanagh didn't force exchanges. And he did it against Brandon Moreno, a former champion who has been here before. Most short notice fighters are just trying to survive. Kavanagh wasn't surviving. He was fighting like he belonged there. So if he can stay composed in that kind of a fight, in that kind of an environment, the real question is, what does that say about where he fits in this new flyweight division right now? 125 is in a very fluctuous state right now. Gone is Brandon Moreno, Alexandre Pantoja, Brandon Royval, Davison Figueiredo. In comes the Tatsuro Tairas, the Joshua Vans, and the now Lone'er Kavanaghs. It is a weird time because we see divisions change over all the time, and it always catches us by surprise. But Lone'er Kavanagh came in here and just said, hey, we're going to do it all right now. Let's just go ahead and get it out the way. And that's what he did. He went in there and he made a statement that, hey, I am the now. He did the same thing that a Tatsuro Taira did against Brandon Moreno not long ago, against what Joshua Van has done to Pantoja. The new blood is here. And people are going to be quick to say, oh, what about Manel Kape? What about Kyoji Horiguchi? Like, those guys are great, but like, let's look at some facts here, guys. Joshua Van is a mind-numbing 24 years old. Tatsuro Taira is 26. Kavanagh, 26 also. The 30s aren't good enough for 125 anymore. Your athleticism is too far gone by that point. And sure, Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno and Royval and Pantoja can stick around. Sure. But, like, when you have these young guys coming through and churning over a division, it makes it that much harder, and you have to be that much greater. Which is part of why we respect a Alexandre Pantoja. But Lone'er Kavanagh's performance really just showed us that this is a young man's game. People are going to be quick, like I said, to say, oh, Manel Kape and Kyoji Horiguchi, their ceiling is low, and they got to make a move at the title sooner rather than later, before one of these young guys get a hold to it. Because let me tell you something, guys. That Lone'er Kavanagh that fought Brandon Moreno walks through Manel Kape. Horiguchi maybe not so much. That's a little bit different of a fight. But the type of fight that Manel Kape has plays right into the hands of Lone'er Kavanagh. These young guns are so good, and they're so good so early. It's hard to keep up with just how great. I was talking to somebody at the gym the other day about it. Like, man, these guys come in, they already know how to wrestle. Lone'er Kavanagh knew how to wrestle. He knew how to stop a takedown, at least. He knows how to get the fight to the ground. We've seen that in his last fight with Felipe Dos Anjos. These young guys are great. And 125, it's moving along. And out are the, we've watched the division turnover once already. We did with Demetrius Johnson and Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo. Like, those guys are great. But then came in the Brandon Morenos, Figueiredo, the Pantojas, like that era. And now we're on to a new crop of fighters. And this will happen in other divisions. This will happen in divisions that desperately need it, sure. But we're seeing it first here. And we called it in the preview show that this could be a trap fight for Brandon Moreno. Lone'er Kavanagh's position in the division is cut and dry. He's one of the new blood, the new generation that are coming here to take over. And it always happens. All fighters eventually go away. Most do not retire undefeated, whatever Floyd Mayweather would, allow you to believe. Most don't retire undefeated. That's not how things work. Lone'er Kavanagh is part of that Tatsuro Taira and Joshua Van area. He is the next breed of fighters. I think he really does give anybody a hard time. Not named I think Pantoja can beat him. I'll say that, but we'll get into that in a minute, right? He beat Brandon Moreno though, and Brandon Moreno is a talented and very good fighter. He has his holes, and some of the analysts online will tell you, oh, he's been having these holes. We've been telling you about them. And sure, but it's on the people that he fights to, deal with these holes. And nobody's been able to do it yet until really recently. And nobody's done it like Nobody's done it like Lone'er Kavanagh has. Tyra managed to get the back and really kind of hurt him. And we knew that about Brandon Moreno when, he's incredibly scrambly, but when you can control position on him, you can beat him. That's how Pantoja beat him. But what Lone'er Kavanagh did, he took what Davis and Figueiredo did great and said, I'm going to do it my way with the same principles. Okay? So first and foremost, a guy that's so heavy on his lead foot like Brandon Moreno, you're leaning forward, all his weight's on his lead foot. And there was a couple times where Moreno did check the low kick. But the low kick itself was the single biggest factor in this fight. Moreno's such a fluid fighter. He likes to move in and out. He likes to crouch, change levels, and kind of dip his head in and out and cover distance quickly. So you've got to remove that from the equation. And the first 2 rounds, it's like, let me throw these low kicks. And that's what Lone'er Kavanagh did. He threw low kicks. And he stayed on him as the fight went. Sure, yeah. But when he managed to start, slowing Moreno down, it was very apparent Moreno was hurt and his mobility was compromised. That's when you can start to cut the cage off better because he can't move laterally as well. That's when you can start to press quicker because he can't move vertically as well. And honestly, it takes a little bit of the power out. So if you can land these low kicks like Lone'er Kavanagh did early, you'll have a lot of success against Brandon Moreno. Especially if you do it at range, where Brandon Moreno is content to fight. Moreno, you got to remember, he likes to keep that high guard, likes to weave his way in and throw big looping punches over the top. That's what he does. That's the kind of striking he does with a beautiful jab that he kind of throws with his arm upside down a little bit. That was exaggerated, guys, but you know what I mean. There was pull counters that really kind of helped Lone'er Kavanagh too because of those long looping punches. With Brandon Moreno throwing, he overcommits. And he throws past his opponent if he misses. He swings too wild. And that's where Lone'er Kavanagh feasted, right? He's overcommitting. His arm's not protecting his face right here. It's way over here because he's punched too far. And that's where Lone'er Kavanagh pulls back, pop, pop, 1-2, right up the pipe. And he got Moreno with that a lot. He kicked him in the body a lot. Just really made getting in hard for Brandon Moreno. And we talked about it last week with Sean Strickland and Fluffy Hernandez, where it's like the jab is going to keep your guy from getting in. Well, Lone'er Kavanagh was using the push kick to keep the oncoming advancement of Brandon Moreno at bay. Same principle, just a different weapon. If you can slow him down, which Lone'er Kavanagh did with the low kicks, slowed him down, then you can really start to work your game, the pull counters and all that, because he's slower. He's not as mobile. He's more prone to wing punches, Those overextending and all that, the defending of the takedowns was great, Lone'er Kavanagh did a fantastic job, guys. I don't think we can credit him enough. He was at elevation. And he wasn't training at elevation. It was like a 3-week notice fight. So he definitely wasn't training at elevation. And now Brandon Moreno, he did have some success. He was successful in a lot of ways because he did land a lot of those big loopy punches as he comes in over the top, sure. And that did catch Lone'er Kavanagh. He did manage to stall out a lot of portions of the fight against the fence. That was another success. The problem was when he was trying to have this success, he didn't do enough damage. And with the new rules, we talked about this with our UFC War on Boring with Jelton Almeida. You have to do damage. You have to look for a finish. And instead, he was just getting caught up in the wizard that Lone'er Kavanagh would put him in, and he couldn't do anything there. The knees aren't going to cut it anymore, guys. Kavanagh had a good job of hitting elbows on escapes and stuff. He was doing the damage on the exit. So disincentivizing Brandon Moreno to let go, but it played into his hands. It was great. He rallied, and the problem is he relied on what he liked to do. And the switch up in opponents from Asu Amabayev to Lone'er Kavanagh, the switch up really kind of hurt him because, like, okay, I'm gonna have to rely on this. And I called it. I said, hey, Brandon Moreno's going to have to wrestle. And he tried to wrestle, but he just wasn't quite ready. And like when Lone'er Kavanagh would push forward, like he was very clearly not ready to wrestle. He was fully intended on keeping Almabayev to the fence. Like completely, that was the complete intention, right? He should have hit the body more. You know, he didn't do enough to steal rounds. So, you know, looking forward, like Lone'er Kavanagh, he brings some fun matchups to this. Like, obviously, I want the Joshua Van fight. Like, that is the fight to make. But he's not quite there yet. Joshua Van is obviously fighting Tatsuro Taira for the title at 327. Manel Kape is a fun fight, but I do think Lone'er Kavanagh beats him. Both guys are fast, but Jack Slack says it all the time. You're not like, fast is not a range when it comes to like speed. It's either faster or slower than the guy. And I think Lone'er Kavanagh is faster than Manel Kape. I think he could beat Manel Kape. I don't think Kape will be able to wrestle him. I don't think Kape will be able to get to him. I think the front kicks will give him problems. I don't think that's a one. Now the logical step is Brandon Royval. My problem with Brandon Royval is like it doesn't answer any questions about the fight. It doesn't answer. How do you say this? Like, it's the same set of problems that Brandon Moreno brings forward. And it's a lot of jabs, a lot of long strikes at distance, and a lot of overextending. A little bit more volume, yeah, but like that plays into Lone'er Kavanagh's hands because you're giving him more opportunities, more at bats to capitalize on something that's been overextended and over like the whole overswinging that Moreno does. Royval does the same things. That's a fight that doesn't answer any questions about Lone'er Kavanagh, except for what's he look like in a 5-round camp at not Elevation, not in Mexico, and not on 3 weeks notice. That's what that looks like. But it's the same fight, just probably a little bit worse. Pantoja is probably the hardest fight for him, or Taira, but Taira's fighting for the title. It's probably Pantoja though, because Pantoja's going to do exactly what Brandon Moreno should have done, which is like put him against the fence, grind on him, hurt him against the fence, and then pull him to the ground. I want to see Lone'er Kavanagh on his back. He's looked good in the past against the Felipe fight, but how much of that was kind of like a low level of opponent? Because he's not Alexandre Pantoja. No, not at all. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what I want to see. I want to answer the question like, what can Lone'er Kavanagh do? I don't know. But that's why we lock him in the cage and let him fight.